a man? Do you want to live? Thank you for answering. It was more of a rhetorical question. But maybe you want to live longer. Or maybe you want to be happier. Or maybe you just want to make sure you're not hurting anyone else. In Sweden, 70% of all suicides are committed by men. And 67% of all the homeless are men. And that's all from official statistics. You can look it up. So it's an undeniable fact that men are not well. But here's the kicker. We also know that when men suffer, others suffer too. You see, 87% of all assault is by a male perpetrator. And of course, men are responsible for between 92 and 99% of all reported and committed acts of sexual abuse, varying from when you check the statistics. And that's real figures from BRÅ, the Swedish National Council for Crime Prevention. So, as previously stated, my name is Thor Rutgersson, and here's another picture of me. We had two now already. But this story started about 2 years ago, and my life was a mess. You see, there was this girl, and I thought she was it, but it ended. And so I was lost and confused and sad. Not to mention I was homeless. And I remember moving into this communal apartment in Malmö, which was a first for me. You know, a bunch of young or youngish people living together to keep costs down and to have fun, I guess. I mean, I wasn't there to have fun. I was already over 30. I was just looking for a place to stay. And that whole summer was a blur. There were so many feelings inside me that I had repressed, you know. And a lot of it was feelings of inadequacy, like I was failing at life. I wasn't getting that perfect relationship, or the cool apartment, or the marriage and the kids. And I wasn't making a shitload of money either. There was no career to talk of. So how did I handle that, you might ask? Well, quite frankly, not very well. You see, I went on Tinder and I started conversations with possibly hundreds of women. I went on dates and had casual sex and engaged in various romances. And I tried to bond with all the new friends by going out every other night. And I even started smoking cigarettes again. And whenever I felt a sting of fear or doubt or sadness, I would numb myself with more drinking, more sex, more dates. Or, if all else failed, with ice cream. And I remember sitting in that communal apartment, in my room, on my bed, looking out at the room, all empty, with all my belongings stuffed into those blue bags you get at IKEA and piled up by the wall. And that's when it sort of hit me, that I had become a walking cliché of the vulnerable, hurt male ego. And so I spent the next couple of days thinking, just how influenced was I by typical male behavior, or the image of what a man should be? Just how brainwashed was I? A couple of weeks later, I was browsing through Facebook, and I came across this post by famous Swedish feminist and equality advocate Ida Östensson. And she said, men need to talk to each other about all the stuff we normally don't talk about. And she also said, women have been talking, working, and fighting to change gender stereotypes for a long time. So now it's about damn time for men to take some responsibility. And so, a couple of days later, when I was meeting up with a few friends, I thought, I'll try it. But as it turns out, talking about things you rarely talk about is, well, hard. And I think we were afraid of judgment. So we mostly talked about how things should be, how men should act. It was all general, nothing specific. But then I thought, the hell with it. And so I told them something I'd never told anyone before. I told them that during my teenage years at concerts, sometimes I would press myself against girls in the crowd. Now that happened a long time ago, but up until that conversation, I had never asked myself why I acted that way. And once I admitted to that, then my friends could start talking as well about things they had done or said or things they were thinking about. And that got me thinking too. Perhaps if some of these stories went public, it would help other men to start talking as well. Stories about all the things men seldom talk about, like sex and love and feelings. So when I returned home, I raced to my computer and I sent an email to Ida Östensson. And my pitch was simple. Let's take your idea about men not talking and turn it into a book and a podcast. Now, the number one problem with figuring out what men have a hard time talking about is that, well, we don't talk about it. But why is that? We figured part of the reason is that we are ashamed and afraid. We're ashamed of not living up to the ideals of what a man should be. And we're afraid of what others might think of us if we're open and honest about our thoughts and our feelings. So, we set up this anonymous survey online, asking men what they would like to talk about if nobody judged them. And the answers we received were both sad, surprising, and hopeful, all at the same time. Now, the one thing that really stood out to me was the loneliness. So many of the replies we received testified to this. Men feel alone. One man wrote, I almost never get a call asking me to join in on things. 9 out of 10 times, I'm the one asking. Now, the second thing that stood out to me was the pressure men feel to be strong, in control, and sort of removed from our feelings. Another man wrote, in my relationships, I've been expected to listen to my partner's grievances, but nobody has ever listened to mine. Now, I often feel like I just want to be done with life. And as we worked through these answers, and as guy talks, or killmiddagar, as they were now called, spread across Sweden, with the help of volunteers and the staff at Ida's NGO Make Equal, we identified 6 key areas where men need and want to talk. And here they are. Love. The actual feeling, as well as relationships and how they work and why they fail. Fragility. How it feels to be weak, sad, or scared, and how to express that. And of course, sex. With extra focus on performance anxiety, preconceived roles, crossing other people's comfort zones, and above all, communication. And then there's escape mechanisms, meaning all the things we do in order to escape our emotions. Again, men are overrepresented when it comes to addiction, crime, and suicide. And friendship, as in why are we so lonely? How do we deal with that? And how do we sort of take responsibility for upholding our social relationships? And finally, ego. What do we think we do in order to be real men? And how can we feel good about ourselves? How do we repair our broken self-images? And with that, it was time for me to start talking to other men. And there's so much to share here because I talked to a range of different men from different walks of life. And some might be faces you know, at least if you live in Sweden. So have a very quick look at some faces. But for today, I'm going to talk about one specific conversation. Now, you wouldn't think a politician would be the natural fit for an open conversation about very personal things. But then the leader of the Young Social Democrats in Sweden, Philip Botström, is no ordinary politician. Previously, he had already gone public about being gay and also about his fatigue symptoms. So we knew that he was our guy. And in this conversation, Philip started out by saying, I think the long-term effects of pornography, the way it's presented today, is that it fixes our roles as men and women. If it's okay to treat a woman like that when you're having sex, why wouldn't it be okay in the classroom or in the workplace? And upon hearing that, I made a connection to other media, like movies and TV and the sort of romantic shenanigans that we're always exposed to. And I said, you have a man and a woman, and they're carrying on, fighting and bickering, and so there's this tension between them. And at some point in the movie, the guy will walk up to the woman, pin her against the wall, and kiss her. But of course she's into it, and then cut to the lovemaking. And joining in on this conversation was Harry Skärlund, coordinator at Under Kevlaret, an NGO dedicated to men's mental health and fighting macho stereotypes. And Harry brought music into the equation by saying, have you listened to any of the hit songs lately? The lyrics? There's a lot of sick stuff out there. On the verge of rape, what they're singing about women. Like in that one song, Blurred Lines. It's about this girl and how her no doesn't really mean no. For me, this discussion captures something significant about the way guys are taught to court women. Obviously, that sort of universal story affects all of us, men, women, and others. It influences how we behave when dating or even just when interacting at random. And so I think we can all agree we need to change that story. And to tie into that, as we were working, Me Too happened. And Ida and I decided to put another anonymous survey out there, this time with an emphasis towards the future. So we asked, what will you as a man do now to contribute to a world free of sexual assault and sexism? And would you believe we received over 1,000 replies in under a week? And I'd like to share 4 of them now relating to sex and Me Too. Look for signs that your partner is giving consent. I mean, practice consent in real life. Instead of them having to say no, look for signs. Work against typical male or macho behavior, like hunting for, nagging for, or pushing people into having sex. Also, think about your own role in creating a society based on consent. Reflect upon where the line is and how not to cross it. And finally, be receptive as to when flirting is welcome and when it's not. Again, these are things that men wrote during Me Too. So it's what we know we have to do. It's what we know we have to change. And we received so many insightful contributions during that campaign. But if I was to share only 4 more with you now that sort of resonate with me personally, it will be the following. Think about what male norms affect you and try to work against them. Make an effort to stay in contact with your friends and take care of your social relationships. Also, take care of yourself so that your partner doesn't have to do it for you. And number 4, work with your self-image. Try to feel good about yourself so that you can be better for others. And as my co-author Ida Östensson likes to say, it's time to go from female self-defense to male self-awareness. Now, as I'm standing here today, I feel I've come a long way from that communal apartment in Malmö with the shambles of my life packed into those blue IKEA bags. Maybe not financially, because I'm still, after all, a writer and a freelancer. And maybe not when it comes to living arrangements, because I'm currently residing in a basement. But certainly emotionally. And the journey is never over. As with many things in life, We need to keep learning for as long as we're alive. But I'm not doing it alone. All across the globe, there are new initiatives for questioning stereotypical male behavior. So things are finally happening, and I hope that you will all be joining in. So thank you so much for taking the time and listening to me today.